Well, welcome to this episode of the YAHOWAH blog. We're here in our library studio. It is the 2nd of September, a Tuesday in 2025. And as the sun is beginning to settle in the western sky here on the Caribbean islands, the Virgin U.S. islands, we are going to resume our analysis of the testimony that has been provided in the book entitled Daniel. One of the great mistakes that people make in the book of Daniel is they ascribe prophecy to Daniel. But Daniel wasn't a prophet. As a matter of fact, at this very moment, Daniel fell asleep when the actual prophets arrived. And at this moment, there are two of them that are in Babylon to meet with Daniel. The first is
who's clueless.
The first is Michael, is also known as Yada. He is being called by his name Yada in this situation. Mm-hmm. And the second is Gabriel, who is Dode, God's most capable and courageous man. So these two men, one being brought forward in time, the other one being back in time, have rendezvoused here in Babylon to speak to Daniel, not because he's a prophet, but get Daniel to write this stuff down so that it can be shared in the future. So Daniel is not a prophet. In fact, the other fellow that wrote in Babylon, Ezekiel, was not a prophet either. In fact, Ezekiel speaks for Hasatan, the adversary. In the book of Ezekiel, there is featured 25 ways to torment and kill Jews, and two horrible rape scenes, as well as a presentation that glorifies Hasatan's role in Gan Eden when he, as a cherub, slithered off the wall to mislead Towrah and then lamented Yahweh, diminishing him from a spiritual being of prominence to that of a serpent. So,
well, maybe he's Hashatan's prophet.
Yeah, well, not Daniel is not.
No, Ezekiel
was, yeah. But not so much a prophet. Although there are prophetic statements in Ezekiel, the whole story of the copper con, the real estate developer that is a copper color that is measuring the grand edifice that Satan wants to build to pave over all of the Temple Mount, all of Jerusalem, and most of Judea. Is being planned in conjunction with this man that he calls the Bronze Boy, who is none other than, of course, Donald Trump as the real estate developer who is measuring up this grandiose edifice. And he also speaks of the replacement feast that he is going to celebrate during his time when he is going to arrive in Jerusalem with his corporeal manifestation, and there will be a shift in the time of Passover's observation such that it coincides with Ashura Day and with Easter. And then he is going to obliterate all references to matzah and to Bikurim, because, well, if you celebrate Pesach and not matzah and Bikurim, then you get an eternal stay in Sheol, hell, because you will be immortal, but still imperfect. He is then going to eliminate the rest of Yahweh's Moed Mikre and replace them by such interesting observations as All Stupid Day. There will also be Do Nothing Day, and his favorite, the Feast of the Beast. And the Feast of the Beast is a cannibalistic ceremony where Satan fantasizes over devouring my flesh and eating my blood. I have long said that Donald Trump is the Hannibal Lecter of politicians, that he devours rival and friend alike. Well, he gets to play that role for real during the last 3.5 years as he makes his new habitat, Jerusalem, to be sovereign over the Jewish people. So this is where we are. We're returning to the text of Daniel. We have now the most extraordinary man who ever lived, probably the most profoundly important of the prophets, our Messiah, our King, the very Son of God, is the person in charge of this particular meeting. He is actually the second, though, to arrive. I was the first. I'm referred to here as Yada. I'm referred to elsewhere as Makael, which is one who is right about God. And the moment Dode, as Gabriel, arrives, old Daniel did a nosedive and a face plant. And he went into La La Land fast asleep. And then it was our job to prop him back up so that at least he could write down what it was that he was hearing. And at this point, I was asked to wake Daniel up and this would be by Dode, who is in the role now of Gabriel, God's most capable and competent man. And I was to give him a very sound slap to the face and then prop him up such that he would be able to write down what he was witnessing, or it would all have been for naught. Thereupon Dode, as Gabriel said, he said, "Pay attention to me. Behold, be alert, be observant of who I am. Yada is the one who's going to make this known to you so that it can be understood. Yada ata. Yada will reveal what you should perceive, engaging to make you familiar with and acknowledge what you have observed so that it can be more broadly known."
I think you should repeat that for the deaf children of Israel.
Yeah, when we speak of this, it is that Yada that he is referring to. It's the Yada who wrote these books called Yada, to know Yahowah. And as for slapping the face of Daniel, that really is my job. I'm to slap the face of Yisrael to get them to pay attention to what their Messiah and King has to say, what their God has to say, because they're not listening. So I would say the same thing. Pay attention. Yada is trying to make this known to you so that you can understand what God has to say about this time. Now, in the previous statement, too, we were told explicitly that what is being revealed is for the last days. It wouldn't even be understood until quite recently, in fact, in these series of programs. As the final witness to the eternal testimony regarding the restoring appointments of the Moed, ki la Moed ketz. Indeed, as an eyewitness to the concluding Moed, these appointed meetings in the end, explaining the concluding designated schedule of the assemblies to gather together and celebrate the agreement. This is from Mo, which means this pertains to Ed, the eternal and restoring witness, everlasting testimony, and enduring evidence. He will literally and without hesitation or interruption convey the way to receive the benefits of the relationship in the distant future, during the last days, on behalf of the indignant remnant at the end of time, when most everything and everyone is enraged, and on behalf of the final, displeasing, denounced, and defiant descendants. Daniel, my God, judges, condemns, and vindicates. 8:19. Clearly as this can be stated, the person who is tasked with explaining who Gabriel is, as Dode, God's most capable and competent man, the man who is charged with helping Israel understand, first to know who the players are, what time it is, what's going to transpire, and then to understand it all so they can respond intelligently. That man's name is Yada. He is this guy and that guy. He's going to make this known to you. He is the Moed Ketz. He is the final witness to these eternal testimonies regarding the restoring appointments of the Moed. There are 7 Moedim. Pesach, Matzah, Bakurim. They were fulfilled by Gabriel, Dod, in his second of 3 lives in year 4000 Yah, 33 CE, exactly as he said he would in first person through the 22nd and 88th Psalms, writing of his own crucifixion to fulfill Passover, and how he would enter Sheol, hell, to be separated and set apart, to drop off our guilt so that it would never be seen again, and then how that would lead to the firstborn, the Bakor of Yahweh, enabling Bakurim, firstborn children. These are the first 3 Moed Mikre. They were fulfilled exactly when Dod said he would fulfill them in this testimony, showing 500 years in advance the day he would complete Chag Matzah. And he is the one who made the Shabuah harvest possible, recognizing it would be Yada that would have to cultivate that harvest and let people know about it so that there would be participants during it. That is the 4th of the Moed Mikre. The last 3 are fulfilled in year 6000 Yah, 2000 years or 40 Yobel from the time that Dod fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. They will also be fulfilled in Jerusalem, with Towrah having 2 phases. One is the final gleaning of the covenant children on a Friday evening, the 23rd of September of 2033. And then the grand show of all shows, the greatest show on earth, the fulfillment of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah, with Eliah himself serving as master of ceremonies, and Yahweh releasing the dancing waters and soaring flames, so that the adulterous woman, this religious woman of Israel, can be purged so that she is prepared to be betrothed to Dod as he and Yahweh return on Kippurim 10 days thereafter. And then we can all enter a restored earth, conditioned as it was in Eden 6,000 years ago. That is this timeline, and it runs through those 6 Moed, also called Mikra, invitations to be called out and meet with God. And so Yada's mission is to explain these Moedim to you, so that you understand when Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim were fulfilled. Who fulfilled them? What is the benefit of each of those 3? How do they lead to the fulfillment of Shabuah? When does that transpire? How does that then lead to Teruah and that gleaning? Why then do we need to have the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah on the 2nd day of Teruah, the Shabat, the Saturday? And how does that then lead to Dod being able to return with Yahweh on Kippurim? And what day and exact moment will that occur, such that we know when we will be readmitted to Eden? Again, the exact day, the year, right down to the minute that we will be readmitted into Eden, so that we understand the meaning behind each one of these 7 Moed Mikre, when they were and will be fulfilled, by whom, where, and when. Now, that's a big job. I've shared them on these programs. I've written them in these books. You know, there's a book series here called Ketzir. It's the middle of the 3 on the fulfillment of these Moed. There's Mikre, which is these appointments to meet with God, the invitations to meet with God. There's Moedim, which are these restoring witnesses. Moedim I presented as the last 2, Kippurim and Sukkah. This presents the middle 2, the Shabuah and Teruah, the 2 harvests. And then there is a third, the beginning of the 3, that explains how Dod fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim. Collectively, they are 800 pages, 7, 6, probably 13, 2,100 pages, maybe 2,200 pages long. There's a lot to know about these dates. They're the most important dates in human history. And you look at Judaism, they don't get anything right. They don't get anything right on any of them. And they every single one they mess up.
Exactly.
And then they plaster over them with their own.
Oh,
like this current celebration of the 6th month, as it were, the end of the year.
Yeah.
And blowing their shofars at this time and pretending that it's some kind of a religious celebration when it isn't. It's the 6th month leads to the 7th month, and then there are 12 months to the year, not just 6. It's
a day late and a dollar short, always.
And they renamed Towrah as Yom Kippurim, the Babylonian head of the year. I mean, they've done everything wrong. And then earlier, then they'll have Hanukkah, has nothing to do with God. They'll have Purim, which is from the stupid book of Esther, which not a word of Esther is true. It's a fairy tale. Yeah. And it's just that they can't think. They've made Passover a 7-day celebration when Passover is just the first day of matzah. Passover by itself is counterproductive. They cannot think. It is the dumbest religion of the 3 Abraham religion, and that's saying a lot. But to be fair, rabbis created all 3 of them, so they could stack the competition.
Yeah, that's very true.
So the final witness to the eternal testimony regarding the restoring appointments of the Moed, he will literally and without hesitation or interruption convey. And he has to convey these in 2 ways. These last 4 of the Moed Mikre. They are celebrated on Shabuah, May 22nd, 2026. Shabuah again on a Shabbat of June 11th, 2027. One is when the time of Yaakov's troubles begins and when the state of Israel is dissected such that she becomes vulnerable, because a state of terror is going to be awarded to the Fakistinians who perpetrated Alaska flood on 10/7. And this will happen because of Israel's rather foolish response to 10/7, as opposed to executing an intelligent plan. Then on the next Towrah, the one June 11th, 2027, that is when the Katsir harvest will occur. Then we have 7 years thereafter, 6 years and change from that date to Towrah, which will be on a 2-day event. The 26th at sunset is the Lakat harvest of Jews, of Yehudim and Israelites, and the following day on the Shabat, there will be a grand celebration where every qualified Yehud and Israelite the world over, who is not overtly religious or political, who has only sins of omission to cleanse and none of commission, will be gathered to come into the presence of the waters and the flames and the ash and the great cleansing that will take place, so that they're prepared for Kippurim, which is the day of reconciliations, when Dode is returning with Yahowah, so that we can camp out together on Sukkah 5 days thereafter. This is God's schedule. And my job is to convey it to you. And my job is to do more than that, because I need to convey the souls who will participate in Shabuah and Towrah, and convey the purged souls who will be there following the fulfillment of Towrah in the 2nd day on the Shabbat, such that they'll be ready to participate in the wedding and great homecoming, which begins sundown 6:22 p.m. in Jerusalem on the 2nd of October, 2033, which is year 6000 Yah. And he will not only convey this without hesitation or interruption, he will also present the way to receive the benefits of the relationship. Particularly happy to see that Haya was written in the call imperfect, 3rd person masculine singular. All the way through, the job that I have been afforded by Yahowah is always masculine singular. There's only one person who has been assigned this job. He is a man, and he is one man. It's like most of what God does. He does not work through committee. And in this case, there is one man he is assigned this role to, and that happens to be Yada. The second thing is that he used the call imperfect, which means that he is genuinely going to get this done, and it will be without interruption or hesitation. And that's important because there are lots of distractions out there. And, you know, when you get as young as I am now, we typically have this tendency to break down and not be able to perform on an uninterrupted basis. And yet, thank goodness Yahweh has kept me in decent health, and therefore I'm able to do this day in and day out and every day without taking a break of any kind. And that is quite remarkable.
You are not the type of man to hesitate, no.
No, and I've never been. I'm pretty quick on the trigger when it comes to getting it done, and I do not lift on the accelerator until we have arrived at.
No, I've been in the car with you.
Yes. You've been in the plane with me too. It
yes.
goes full throttle until it's time to land, and we only pull back the throttle at the last possible moment. And he is speaking of that which, at the time this was revealed, would occur in the distant future during the last days on behalf of an indignant remnant. Well, that distant future now is a close future. It's just on our horizon. The first phase of Towrah is Shabat is 10 months away. The second phase is 22 months away. Towrah is just 8 years and 1 month away at this point, as is the fulfillment of Yom Kippurim, when Dod and Yahweh return, and our entry on Sukkah into the garden. So we are nearing this time. And it's more important than just nearing this time, because that last 7 years is going to be brutal. You know, yes. if you don't return to Yahweh now when it's easy, when you can do so without having Muslims and Marxists, anti-Semites, conspiratorialists trying to tear you to ribbons. This is a much easier time for you to do that. You can learn about Islam, know your enemy. You can learn about Yahweh, know your ally. You can learn about Dod and be cognizant of your king and your Messiah. And you can do this now. It will be much more difficult to do it if you delay. So the time is nigh. Now we're told that this remnant will be indignant, and indeed they are. Yahweh's people have been indignant from the beginning. The story of the Exodus is the story of God abuse. You abused God in every possible way. You were obnoxious to him. You did the inconceivable. You told God to shut up and go away. You never wanted to hear from him or see him again. And then
erased his name.
And then, for good measure, every time he had to intervene because you were tearing Moshe apart, tearing him down, cutting to pieces, threatening to stone him, replace him, go back to Mitzrayim. Every time that you had the chance, you were belly aching and throwing stones and spitting in God's face just to reinforce the fact that you were belligerent and obnoxious and horrible. And it hasn't changed. I mean, this whole concept of Judaism is repulsive to God. And the Haredim variety, worshiping the likes of dead rabbis and Baal Shem Tov is well, it's not borderline insane. It is insane. Mm-hmm. And Judaism is the greatest enemy of Jews, and it has been for a very long time. It goes all the way back to Akiba. In fact, it even goes back to Paul, the rabbi who created the Christian New Testament, and the rabbis who created Islam, literally writing the Quran. Muhammad was illiterate, and the Quran is based on bastardized Talmud stories. So Jews have been their worst enemy, and the rabbis have been the worst among Jews. Yeah. So we are being shown that exactly what Yahowah has foretold with Yada. And Yada is important to Yahowah. So when you read Yahowah, and he speaks of Yada often, Yahowah had a very rough life. He devoted himself to conveying God's message. I don't think anyone gave a more sweeping panorama of prophecy and of the belligerence of Jews, particularly their propensity to be religious and why it was so obnoxious to God. No one surpassed Yahowah in that regard, or that had a more comprehensive presentation of future events leading all the way to our reentry into the Garden of Eden come Sukkah, October 7th. A Shabat, of course, in 2033. And the reason that Yahowah is so thrilled with and focused upon Yada, whom he has many names for, the Choder is, well, God has many names for, but Yahowah gets to report them. The Choder is an essential one. He devotes the entire 11th chapter to the Choder. The Nakar is another, this observant foreigner. He speaks of the man from Edom who will save many. He speaks of the Parah, this productive bull. He talks of him not only being the final Zeroah, the one cultivating the harvest. Yahowah is so impressed with his results, he even calls him, that's my Zeroah, man. He's in that wine vat right there with me.
And that's my guy.
That's my guy all the way through. It's everything that he can do to draw Israel's attention to the role, the collaboration that he and Yahowah and I and Dode have at this time. And the reason that it is so important to Yahowah, not only because he loves Yahowah and he loves Dode and he loves his people, is because Yahowah invited him to Shamaim during his life, and then while he was there, Yahowah opened the door to heaven, and Yahowah broke down in tears because he looked out that door and he saw no one. There wasn't a single person wanting entry, and so he felt that he had betrayed Yahowah, that he had failed him, and Yahowah said, no. That's not the case. That's you've done your job beautifully.
I got a guy.
And I got a guy. I got a guy. I'm gonna, we're gonna go forward now in time. I'm gonna show you a guy. That this guy is going to learn all about what he needs to do based upon your testimony. You're going to be the textbook that he is going to use to step into the shoes and the role that he needs to fill for your testimony to resonate and to draw many into the covenant. And so your words are going to resonate. They're going to matter, Yahowah. And it's because they're going to be echoed. They're going to be proclaimed. They're going to be explained by this fellow that you were calling Yada. And that's why Yahowah is so excited about this. I can't blame him. It is a really big deal to him.
Big deal to Yahowah too.
Yeah, of course, and to Dode, and to his people, even though they don't recognize it yet.
No.
So in this regard, time is like putty in Yahowah's hands. So here is a man from the 21st century addressing Daniel 2,600 years ago, discussing what I'm doing for you at this very moment. Now, if that's difficult for you to wrap your head around, I'm sorry. I understand, but you just have to have an appreciation that Yahowah is an energy-based being, and as an energy-based being, time simply is. It is not something that we are stuck in. In our 3D existence, we are stuck in the ordinary flow of time, but Yahowah's not. And being liberated in time, he can send souls forward and back in time to report what needs to be said and understood.
That age-old human desire to know if time travel is possible, it is, but not if you're a human.
That is correct. You have to.
One caveat.
We cannot explore our solar system.
No.
We cannot travel throughout our galaxy.
Not material form.
We cannot venture outside of our galaxy into the universe where there are 2 trillion galaxies that we know of while we have these physical bodies.
Yep.
Cannot be done.
Nope.
Even at the speed of light, the distances are too great, and a physical being cannot accelerate to anything close to the speed of light.
Nope. We would incinerate.
So there you are. Until we are transformed, as Yahweh has promised, as fire portends, where decaying organic material is transformed into energy and light, such that as an energy-based being, time simply is. So it doesn't matter what the distance is, nor the velocity, because it is you're dividing by 0 when you're dealing with the time necessary to travel that distance. So
it's not even going to take a nanosecond.
You can travel any distance you want in no time at all.
Yep.
And makes the universe all accessible. And then you can also approach places because you're not breathing air. You're not susceptible to cosmic rays. You're not susceptible to cold or to hot.
The gamma radiation alone would kill you.
Yeah, and then when you get to a place that you want to explore, let's say there's a planet that has Earth-like conditions and there's life on that planet, and you want to enjoy a lovely picnic there, you can transform any amount of your energy that you wish into a physical form and place a portion of your soul, kind of like an avatar, in that and enjoy it. And when you're done enjoying it, you reunite with your energy-based being and go wherever you want to go next. This is the marvelous nature of what Yahweh is promising us. So I know that's a lot to wrap your head around, but that is nonetheless what God is offering. And it pales in comparison to the realization that Dode, the Son of God and Messiah, the prophet and king, the shepherd, and the lamb, is Gabriel, God's most confident and capable, his most courageous and confrontational man, and that he is here in Babylon, some 400 years after his first life concluded. And that he would return 500 years thereafter to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and that he's coming back again as the King of Kings to be King of forevermore. 3 marvelous lives. And even Yada, who is the other person in this story, he also gets to live 3 lives plus these ventures into the past and into the future to help explain to God's people and the world at all what God is offering. And so in my case, here I am, I'm alive in my 70th year, and I will soon be part of that harvest of the Shabuah covenant family. And 3 years thereafter, I'm going to be returned with Elia, and we're going to be hanging out on the Temple Mount, purged of the Islamic scars, in the replica of the tent of the restoring witness. And we're going to be sharing what we know about God for all who will listen while God performs miracles all around us, and going to actually live stream these types of programs for the world to see. And we're going to be doing that for 3.5 years. And at the end of that time, both Elia and I will make sacrifices. Mine is first. Elia will orchestrate mine because he's expert in the sacrifice of a bull to rid Israel of religious and political.
He has experience.
Yeah, he has experience. He did that job 40 Babel, 888 years prior. And so he's going to be there as the master of ceremonies. No one could do that job better. Yahweh's going to ignite the flames. He's going to purge Israel of all of her enemies. He's going to restore the earth back to the Garden of Eden condition. And all of the remnant of Yisrael from around the world will be brought into Jerusalem to benefit from this sacrifice so that they are purged of their inadvertent guilt and can receive Dode back on Yom Kippurim. So a lot going on here. And once my physical body is taken, it's just like Dode giving up his physical body on Pesach. His soul, just like my soul, will go on. His soul went on to take our guilt into Sheol and then return to his Father. mine will immediately join Yahowah and Dode as we witness and participate in this transformation of lives and the planet in the 10 days getting ready for the great wedding of Israel to the Messiah and King Dode. So on this occasion of his return, we are addressing what the remnant of Yisrael must know and understand and then respond to survive. In the end, there will be two witnesses heralding our King. Opposing them, there will be countless millions of delusional, religious, and disingenuous political aspirants, crazed conspiratorialists, from MAGAs and Marxists to Muslims, all serving the beast either directly or indirectly. Many enthralled with the man who is the great betrayer, Donald Trump, who will be the corporeal manifestation of HaSatan. He is already demon possessed in this regard. He is the great confabulator. And it's hardly a fair fight with Elia and I against billions of people and against HaSatan and his corporeal manifestation. But nonetheless, they'll try. I can be really cocky at this point. Right now I'm exceedingly confident and nothing bothers me. And you have to be exceedingly confident to write a book like the 5 volumes of goddamn religion, which excoriate Islam, prove that Allah is not a god, prove that Muhammad was not a prophet, prove that Allah is exceedingly stupid and demonic, proving that Muhammad was a rapist and a pedophile and a terrorist and mass murderer and a thief and a just all around thug.
You had me at exceedingly stupid.
4,200 pages on that and under your own name and do thousands of radio shows to affirm it. You better have some confidence. And then to go from that to writing 5 volumes to disproving everything in the Christian New Testament, including proving that Jesus never existed, that he's nothing but a crude counterfeit of Dode conceived by Paul based upon what Dode actually did in 33 CE. You better have some confidence if you're going to go after Christians and the New Testament in that way. And then in exposing the books on Babel and proving that they were not prophetic and exposing Judaism in the process, you want to go after rabbis. They play rough too. So you'd better have some confidence in all this. And if you're going to reintroduce Yahweh's name to the world, if you're going to say that the actual Messiah is Dode David, he is the returning king, he is the very Son of God, he is the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bekodim in his second and third lives. That is the greatest discovery in human history. And if you're going to be saying it because of all of the implications, you better have some confidence in that regard too. If you're going to write 35 books and make them freely available to anyone who wants to read them so that they have the opportunity to challenge anything you've said, and then you're going to do 3 hours of live video blogs a day to lay it on the line, you better have some confidence. You're going to turn on these cameras and turn on these lights and this microphone and go, laying yourself out, once to twice a day, 6 to 7 days a week. You better have some chutzpah, as they say, or chakma, to make that go. But that's nothing compared to what Elia and I are going to be like during the last 3.5 years of the time of Jacob's troubles. I mean, we've already come back from a stay in heaven. Now, Elia is going to have me beat. He's going to have been there
a little while,
2,880 some odd years.
Yeah.
His batteries will be fully recharged, man. Yeah. He is going to be ready to go. I will have had I'm not going to say a 3-year break, because I think that entire 3 years is going to be coaching, education, preparation, just getting ready for what will be this most important time. But you're going to come back. I mean, you're coming back from heaven. You're coming back from the 7th dimension. You're coming back after spending 3 years with your king, with Dode, 3 years with Elia, of all, the great inspiring Elia, 3 years with shoulder to shoulder with Yahshua, not just reading his words, but chit-chatting with the man. And of course, 3 years of direct contact and education and inspiration from Yahweh himself. Go get him, kid. I like what you're doing there, young man. I get a kick out of it because every time we have a conversation, I'm always young man. By comparison to him, because, he's a few trillion years old, give or take, a gazillion or 2 years, I'm pretty young. So that's but anyway, can you imagine coming back like that? And you're going to be impervious. I mean, they could shoot a hypersonic missile at you. It would go boink. You're not going to even boink, feel it. Next. Drop a nuclear bomb. Try it. See what happens. No, I mean, you're completely impervious, and you have supernatural powers, so that if somebody really gets annoying, a lot of people do.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to breathe fire. You just incinerate them. Okay, next. Who wants to debate next?
I always wanted to have a pet dragon. Mm-hmm.
So this is, it basically, my personality is that of a bull. That's what Yahweh says. And, bulls are play for keeps, man. You antagonize a bull, you're going to get gored. And that's what God wanted. And, goats aren't particularly...
they're pretty ornery.
They're pretty ornery.
Oh,
too.
my God, and yes.
So, God's characters are this goat and this bull, and Dode is not coming back as the lamb. He's coming back as a ram. Lion. And he is the lion of Yahudah. Yeah. So, his cast of characters, we have a roar. Mm-hmm. We have, we got horns. And all three of us have horns.
And claws.
And Dode's got a bite. So that's the nature of these things. So try as they might, the opposition is going to do very poorly during this time. And while Team Satan will make a mess of things after annihilating one another to the point of mass extinction, Yahweh has scheduled his version of the Great Reset. And the Great Reset is as a result of the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. And it is particularly reassuring to know that in serving Dode as our Messiah and King, our shepherd, who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim, such that we're here because of what he did. The only entry into the covenant family, to the Shabuah harvest, to the Towrah gleaning, and to be immortal and to live in God's presence, to go from 3 dimensions to 7 dimensions, is by way of what Dode provided. So we are all going to be exceedingly respectful and appreciative of what Dode has done. And so even serving as his assistant, as his herald, would be a very difficult job without at least having something to hang as a shingle and say, well, at least, I have this one point on my resume. Because Dode has the most magnificent resume in the universe. You're not trying to compete with him. You're just trying to stay, in the same zip code with him and to be able to work with him. When he walked into this room here with Daniel did a face plant. So, you're not going to be of any value to him if you do a face plant. So, how do you earn the respect of those you will be communicating to and through on behalf of the king, unless you've got at least something that you can hang as a credential? Oh,
you mean some skin in the game?
Some skin in the game.
And, okay, now we're at it. Some Bashar. Okay.
Yeah, that's the deal. The Parah, this bull that is productive, is the sacrifice on Towrah. And all who are mortal and are allowed into the millennial Shabat, this 1,000-year celebration of life, 100% of them will be there because they were purged of their guilt by the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. So, I'll have their attention. Will have earned their respect as well. And that'll be necessary to do this job.
Absolutely.
And I also recognize that there is going to be a very dedicated team in support of the work that I will be doing on behalf of King Dode, who is working on behalf of Yahowah. And that it's the same team that is working diligently now to communicate this message to Israel and to the world. And they will have their credential too, because there won't be anyone who benefits from Shabuah or Towrah or Yom Kippurim who wasn't a beneficiary of what we were able to achieve as a family and as Team Yah. So it's the way Yahweh wants it. We'll all have our skin in the game. We're all going to make a profound contribution, and we're going to remain dedicated. So when it's time to celebrate, we're going to have reason to celebrate. So more completely and adroitly than anywhere in human history, this Gabor is credited for the first time doing something no one considered prior to these books called Yada Yahowah. This series here, my favorite on Dode, this is the first of 4 volumes called Coming Home that walk us through Dode's magnificent Psalms and his life. And what I've been able to discern from these translations and insights is that he is the lone voice calling out to welcome someone exceptional, Gabriel's most acclaimed leader. And it is appropriate that after 3,000 years of sharing the prophecies that explained how he would fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and be our Savior, that it is his herald that was the first to discern this and share this great discovery, to recredit Dode with all he has achieved, to restore his inheritance, to restore the benefit that he is offering his people and the world. So the lesser Gabor is prepared to tell the great Gabor's entire story. And it begins when a shepherd boy was chosen and anointed by God 3,000 years ago. He would grow to become a great prophet and king. He would unite Israel. He would build Jerusalem. And it was during this time that the Messiah earned the greatest accolade of all. What do you think the greatest accolade that any man can possibly achieve?
To be called Yahweh's son.
And there's something even better than being called Yahweh's son. You know what that is? It's not just Ben. It's Bakor.
Firstborn.
What is Dode? He is Yahweh's firstborn son. He is called the Bakor, the firstborn son of Elohim, of God. So there's nothing better than that. That is the finest accolade that any human can have, and there's only one human that has it. Now, 1,000 years thereafter, now nearly 2,000 years ago from our perspective looking back, for very sound reasons, the Son of God and Messiah volunteered to serve as the Pesach El. Now, as an El, he wasn't just the lamb. El means he was also the doorway.
Yeah.
El also means that he was the mightiest of trees. What would be the mightiest of trees, Leah?
That would be the tree of lives.
It would be. The tree in the garden called the tree of lives.
Mm-hmm.
Dode opened the doorway to life.
He did.
On Pesach, because Pesach is the doorway to life. He is all of those things. But even more vital to us than him allowing the beast of Rome to crucify him on Passover as the lamb, he fulfilled Matzah. And Matzah is a vastly more important day than is Pesach, Passover. And that is because while Pesach provides an extension of life, that life cannot be lived in proximity to Yahweh. It cannot receive any of the benefits associated with being part of Yahweh's family unless our guilt is removed. And on matzah, unyeasted bread, it is Dod's nephesh soul that carried our guilt into Sheol, known as hell. To deposit it there, it's akin to a black hole where nothing escapes, nothing can be seen. With our guilt all removed, we are, of course, perfect. God sees us as ideal. He only sees the good in us. And that's what a lovely position to be in. There's no vulnerability. There's no faceplant. God wants to have a chat with you. You can have a chat like it's father and son, because you know God can't see your failings. Nothing that you've ever done that's disappointing can be seen by God. And all he sees is those things which are wonderful, where you're making a contribution. And so it's like the best possible scenario. And this is the one that God has created for us. And he had Dod fulfill not only Pesach and Matzah to elongate our lives so that we would be eternal, and to purge us of all guilt so that we could live in his presence and be, more importantly than living in his presence, being comfortable in his presence. Yeah. Why did the children of Israel tell God to go away and shut up? They never wanted to see him or hear from him again.
I think they were ashamed.
They were ashamed because they knew that brilliant light could pierce them and see the darkness that was in their hearts, their souls, their minds. And so they were uncomfortable with that.
Agreed.
But when you know that God has purged you of all of your errant ways and thoughts and everything else, and that you appear ideal in his sight, then you're just totally comfortable. You're totally relaxed. Right? I've been kidding with God a lot here recently, where I said, God, I swear, if you give me one more accolade, if you give me one more title, I'm just going to scream. I just, enough already. You pushed it as far as it can be pushed. I'm happy to continue the job, but please, no more accolades. Okay. So there was another today. And today, it brought me to tears. It was so good. It's got like God said, listen, kid, I got you covered here. We're going to do it my way, and you're going to have fun at it. And so today, I got to be a makir.
A salesman.
I was God's salesman. And for those that don't know, I spent the first 45 years of my life as a salesman.
Yes, you did.
That's what I did. I was really horrible at it, and then was really, really good at it. Yeah. But I was a salesman, and so for YAHOWAH to say I got a salesman, and it's no ordinary salesman. This salesman not only took care of Nathan's, Jonathan's crippled son, adopting him, and to no acclaim. He just did it because it was the right thing to do. I feel like I'm adopting a crippled Israel, trying to protect this crippled, fractured family. And then when Dod said, listen, I'm restoring everything to Dod's son, everything that Saul had, I'm giving it all to him. He's going to receive the entire inheritance of his father and his father's father. And evidently, this salesman recognized the value in that and came to appreciate Dod for doing that to this young man that he had embraced and had come to love. And he asked nothing for himself, not a word. He was just thrilled that Dod would do this for this young man. And so Dod then fell on rough times. All of Israel came against him. Every man of Israel followed Absalom, his son, in rebellion, trying to rob Dod of his title, rob Dod of his kingdom, rob Dod of everything, just as Israel has done to Dod today. Rob him of his acclaim, his title, his achievements. And all of Israel was against him. And Dod was in trouble. He and the people that few that he had escaped with, his immediate family, they were tired, they were hungry, they had nothing going for them, and all of the men of Israel were coming to kill them. And a fellow intervened. Turns out it was Makir, that salesman again. And he was very wealthy at that time. He provided Dod with everything. The access to Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, Shabuah, Towrah, all of it, even Kippurim. He provided Dowd with everything, from beds to a sheep. He even provided Dowd with a bull. He gave it all. And Dowd's inheritance was restored. So the man that restored Dowd's inheritance and all that God sought to achieve through him and was offering us through him was restored by a salesman. Sometimes life is bigger than you can imagine.
It's a great story.
Oh,
what's it going to take to put you in this brand new, restored, and revived covenant? Brought to you by Yahowah Dowd.
So after reading in Daniel that Yahweh was calling me the Palmoni, the savior of Israel, today I read that, well, I'm also the salesman whose influence and wealth was attributed to restoring Dowd's inheritance, which is the very job that I have done in these books. They are my gift. So, 1,000 years after Dowd wrote the songs about how he would be crucified, how he would fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, are now 2,000 years ago from our perspective. In year 4000 Yah, he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. And he followed the precise timeline that he himself will reveal, because he will tell you the exact date that he will fulfill Chag Matzah in 33 CE. And after allowing the very beast of Rome to brutalize him as the Passover lamb, crucifying him, Dowd's mortal and sacrificed body released his soul so that he could carry our guilt into Sheol on Matzah, and he left it there. Then on Bikurim, the first rays of light streaked past the summit of Moriah, and Dowd's soul, still protected by the Ruach, revealed why. He was called the firstborn son of Almighty God when he returned as the Bukor on Bikurim to Shamayim to be with his father. While heroic, indeed, going into hell.
Yeah.
That's heroic. Talk about confidence. Okay, Yahweh.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do this. I'm not only going to allow the beast of Rome, which at the time it would be another 600 years before Rome would even exist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to, the most vicious of beasts, I'm going to let this most vicious beast beat me to a pulp and crucify me, the most horrible form of torturous death ever devised.
Yeah. And
then if that weren't enough, and I'm going to sacrifice my body, I'm happy to get rid of the body at that point. But then I'm going to allow you to take my soul laden with the guilt of all humankind into Sheol, into hell.
Heavy burden.
And spend matzah there. And I'm going to trust you to get me out of that fix and bring me back home. That's a lot of confidence, isn't it?
Sure is. A lot of chutzpah.
And that's what he did. And then his people spit in his face by foisting not one but two false messiahs to replace him. Disgusting. So while heroic and benevolent, that was not the end of Dowd's story, because he will soon return with Yahweh on Kippurim. God says upon his return with Dowd that Dowd will be as brilliant as the sun. This is important for you to know, because the first prophecy of Dowd is in the fourth day of creation.
It is.
He is the greater luminary that we would consider the sun, who became visible as a sign for the Moed. And the first indication of his herald, the one who would reflect his brilliance, is also provided there in the fourth day of creation, when it said there will be a lesser luminary that will also serve as a sign for those Moed, the very things we're talking about here, these 7 invitations to meet with God, the restoring witness to the eternal testimony, that the lesser luminary would reflect his light as a sign. And the very testimony that God gave regarding his son in the 89th Mizmor or Psalm when he says that his son will return as brilliant as the sun, as Elyon, as his right hand, the right hand of God in his presence. The next line speaks of his continuing relationship with the moon, reflecting his light. Everywhere you look, God has a consistent story, and it's a powerful story. And ultimately, it all comes down to a handful of fellas. And, they go from Abraham. Well, you have Adam. Adam wasn't too spectacular, but you have Adam. He unfortunately did not convey what Yahowah needed to know or to hear for that relationship to work out. But you do have Adam. And then you have Noah, who did something remarkable. He listened to God, did as God requested, and he saved humankind with an Asalma, so we'd have a reset. And then comes Abraham, and he was walking away from Babel, as we must do to be of value to Yah, just as Noah was separated from the community of Nephilim surrounding him. And it made him available to Yahowah. Abraham did the same thing with Sarah. They were walking away from Babylon, when God reached out to him. And, he's, again, not a very high-quality individual. Pimped out Sarah multiple times for goats, so that's not what I would call an honorable man. Wasn't a very bright man either, no matter how many times Yahowah tried to explain what the covenant was going to be of benefit to him. He never understood it. And then you have Yishak, an okay kid, named Laughter. And after Yishak, we follow him to Jacob, and Jacob, again, he's not
a worm.
He is definitely not an inspiring character.
He's a worm.
But, the fact is that God had to work with what he had to work with.
True.
That was just the way it was. And ultimately, there would be this fellow named Moshe. And Yahowah would reach out to him because he was the only one on the planet that was prepared to do the job he wanted done. And the reason he could work through Moshe is that Moshe was the one person who had been exposed to religion and politics in the most religious and political place on earth, in Mitzrayim, Egypt. And he had disavowed it. He had put his life reputation to stop its influence. And then he had walked away. And he engaged in the profession that Yahowah respects most. He was a shepherd.
Yep.
And when Yahowah found him, he had disassociated from religion and politics. As you know, in Mitzrayim, he was shepherding sheep. He was 80 years old, and God says, I want you to go and liberate these people. And Moshe, of course, says, hell no, I'm not going to go do that. I was there once. They spit in my face when I tried to help them. They're obnoxious.
They did?
You do not want to go there, God. They really are obnoxious. And I said, no, we're going there. And, Moshe had every excuse in the world why he couldn't go, and said his diction wasn't very good. And Yahowah said, who do you think made your mouth? You think I can operate it? Okay. So that excuse didn't work very well.
Nope.
Anyway, Moshe agreed, and Yahowah introduced himself by name, said, my name is Yahowah. It's my only name, the only name I ever want to be known by. And of course, his people have
forever
mucked that up mightily, erasing his name and changing it to Hashem or G-D or Adonai. It's disgusting what they have done. But nonetheless, there were a couple of fellows that were germane to the Exodus that were decent. They were Caleb and Yosha ben Nun. And ultimately, when Moshe had to crash and burn because the burden of Israel was too great, they were way too belligerent, obnoxious, just disgusting, appalling. And he told God, I want you to kill me because I don't want to do this job anymore. This job of leading Israel, teaching Israel cannot be done. You've given me an impossible job. You can't do this job. I can't do this job. Let's just give up. And please just kill me. And Yahowah said, no, I got a couple of guys. I'm going to fill them with the Spirit. They are Eldod, by Yahowah's, God's beloved, and my Dod, his right hand, who will be a goyim that will serve Dod, and those are my guys. And from that point on, the story revolves around A couple of guys.
Guys.
It has a third person in there that's still very important. He's the person who is best known for opposing the religious and political establishment in Israel and conducting that sacrifice of the bull that he will reprise on Towrah in 2033. But he is Elia, the great orator. And God brought him out of his time so that he could return at this time. And those are the three fellows. One is a goat, one is a bull, and one is a ram. And the whole story revolves around them from this point on.
Yep.
And you might say, well, God should be able to do better. Look at all the foibles that Dode had. We don't know a whole lot about Elia, and who in the hell are you to write yourself into God's story? I didn't write myself into God's story. I'm just telling you, these are his characters. This is what he has written about. If you don't like it, complain to him. Say, I don't think you should have picked this bull. I think you ought to pick a different animal and a different fella. How about a Jewish fella instead? And God's going to tell you, I looked for a Jewish fella.
There were none.
I looked for 2,500 years to find a Jewish fella.
There were
how many I found that were willing to listen to me?
Zero.
So don't tell me I should have picked a Jewish fellow, because there were none of you who were willing to do this job. Plus, it's my job to make these kind of choices. And you might say, if you really want to think about it, was Adam Jewish?
No.
Was Noah Jewish?
No.
Was Abraham Jewish?
No.
Was Sarah Jewish?
Nope.
Was Ishak Jewish?
Nope.
Was Jacob Jewish? No. They called his sons Israel, and one of his sons became Yehud. And that is when Jew enters the vocabulary.
Yep.
So we are 2,000 years into the story before God has transitioned from Goyim into Yehudim. And so to call his people back home, his people that have become far more Goy, I am far more Yehud than they are. Yes. And they're far more Goy than I am. Yep. And so God found a Goy who is actually mindset of a Yehud, to call his Yehud, who have the mindset of a Goy, back home.
Imagine that.
And if you think that's embarrassing, good. That was the intent. Take it up with God, though, if you don't like it. See how he responds. So here we are. This is Dode's story. And while God does have these three fellows, in the end, the three fellows all serve Dode. We all serve Yahweh. We all serve Yehudim and Yisrael. But most of all, Yahweh chose Dode as his firstborn, as his king, as our king. And we are delighted to be in his company. We reflect his light. We serve him. And soon he will return with Yahweh on Kippurim. His first order of business is that we will witness him anointing the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. He is going to sprinkle it in accordance with the Torah's instructions with the blood of what? And?
A goat.
And is there a bull or a goat anywhere around at this time?
Yeah, a couple of guys. I know a couple guys.
Yeah. Yada is the bull and Elia is the goat. The King of Kings will then reign righteously and respected over the universe and forevermore. His is the most laudable of resumes, and it is being restored by a lowly salesman. And if you're wondering, since this is Dode, why was his name not used as Dode? That question has been asked and answered. No one was supposed to know until now. And that is mostly because the realization that Dode was speaking of himself and what is recorded in Daniel 9 is so profoundly important to God's people. It could not be shared until they were ready to hear it. and it could be proven beyond any doubt. Something that has now been achieved in this volume 4 of Coming Home, volume 9 of Yada Yahowah. Throughout these volumes as well. It is one thing to recognize and proclaim that Dowd is God's Mashiach because he said so. It's one thing to recognize and proclaim that Dowd is the beloved Son of God and his firstborn because God said so. It's one thing to recognize that Dowd is the former and the returning king of Israel because God said so. It's one thing to recognize that Dowd is the chosen one of Yahweh and the most set apart of Yahweh because God said so. It's another thing to recognize that Dowd ascertained from 2 stories, one in the Torah, one that transpired in the pivotal moment of his life, that it was his calling, the best use of his life to serve as the Passover lamb. And until you can realize that Dowd was able to figure out that he should volunteer, you can't tell this story. You can't go off and claim that Yahweh allowed his beloved son to have his body tortured by Rome and then to go into hell to fulfill matzah, unless you can demonstrate how Dowd saw fit to determine he should volunteer to do this. You must be able to show that. And I did. Why was I able to do that? Because I figured it out.
That's right.
I figured it out. If I figured it out, he can figure it out. He's smarter than me. How did I figure it out? I read the story of what Abraham and Yishak did on Mount Moriah in the dress rehearsal for Passover when the whole conversation arose over, where's the lamb? Dad, where's the lamb? And he kept on saying, beloved son. And then Yahweh intervenes and said, don't take the life of your son, your only son, whom you love. I will provide the lamb. What does that mean? It means that Yahweh is going to offer his beloved son as the lamb. That's what that means. And he did. And when Dowd read that, and he wrote the most comprehensive report in the ancient world on the Torah. It wasn't until my most recent books on the Torah that go beyond even what Dowd wrote. But I have an entire volume of an introduction to God that is devoted to Dowd's 119th Mizmor, which analyzes the Torah in every possible angle. So he knew what that said. And then he compared it to the conversation that he was having with Nathan when Yahweh responded through Nathan, the gift, to tell him about who builds houses, who lives in them, whose throne it is forevermore, who will occupy that throne, what will be achieved. And he said that at that moment, tell Dowd, he is my son. I am his father. And at that moment, Dowd would have recognized the story of Yahweh providing the Passover lamb in conjunction with your son, your only son, whom you love, and his name is beloved. And he's just been called the Son of God by God. He immediately made that conclusion, the same one I have. He recognized this is his opportunity to serve his people and his God, his Father, in a mighty way. But then you would have to do one thing more before you can announce this. You have to figure out why he would volunteer, because throughout his Mizmors, his Psalms explaining his path to this decision. He writes them all in the cohortative, which is an expression of his own free will, of his decision. And he says, it is my decision. And then he equates it in the telling Yahowah that it is also yours. It is our decision that we serve, working together in this way to offer life to the covenant family, to perfect them, to carry away their guilt, and to reaffirm the benefits of the covenant. I'm volunteering to do this. You want me to do this. And I know why I must do this and why you must allow me to do this. Because Yahowah, it's 2 days of hell. Just 2. And after that 2 days, we have an eternity to celebrate the life of the covenant family. The thing you wanted most, I'm able to deliver to you because of those 2 days. 2 days for an eternity of the thing you wanted the most. And Yahowah, I know it's for you, but I want it too. You know why? Dode figured out he needed it because he read Numbers 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 20, even 16 and 17 and 20. He knew that Moshe was a good man, and he knew that Moshe could not lead Israel, that over 40 years it was impossible, that he gave up. And Dode knew that even he, in his first life, couldn't lead Israel. I was telling you the story of how he was essentially gone. Had the salesman, Makir, not intervened, we would never know the story of Dode. And so he knew how easy it was to lose the confidence of the people. But he knew that if he devoted himself to fulfilling the most 2 difficult days in human history, that he would earn the respect of every covenant member forevermore. Because all of us are there because he volunteered to do this. And his father allowed him to do it and worked with him through this process. That is why we're all here. So we're forever grateful, forever respectful. And until you know the answer to all of those things, and you have thought them through, and you're the first to discover them, and then prove them, and then share them, you're not in a position to serve as Yada, as Dode's herald, as the man who is responsible for working with Yahowah to bring his people home. I thank you for listening. You have a wonderful evening. Good night.